everyone, and welcome to this first City Council meeting, April 11th, 2022, in our new City Council chambers, and we're all learning the ropes. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for your patience as we try to manage this whole new system. And we're still enabling people to Zoom in. We're accepting testimony tonight from people who are Zooming in. I'm understanding you all are having a hard time getting in, so we're extending the time to enable all of you to sign up who are eager to speak to us. So anyone wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by following the access instructions listed for this meeting on the city's public webcast and meeting materials web page. Tonight's meeting will include a public forum. If you wish to participate and haven't already done so, please raise your virtual hand now to join the speakers queue in one of two ways. For those viewing the meeting on a computer or other device, click once on the hand icon. For those listening to the meeting on a phone, press *9. And we're extending the time to sign up. We'll continue accepting raising hands until 7:50. The meeting moderator will disallow any requests to speak that are made after that deadline, and you will have 2.5 minutes to speak. As a reminder, speakers have the option of turning on your video when you are called on to speak. As your turn is announced, the meeting moderator will temporarily promote you to panelist status, and you can unmute and turn on your video if you wish. And we encourage you to use this in a responsible way. Our intent is simply to be able to see one another's faces as testimony is given. And finally, thank you for your patience and flexibility as we transition to this hybrid meeting format. As always, feel free to contact any one of us individually or together via email or voicemail if there is testimony you were not able to provide or wish to get to us in a different way. And now I will formally open the meeting with a land acknowledgement. Since time immemorial, the Kalapuya people have been the indigenous stewards to our region, building dynamic communities, maintaining balance with wildlife, and enacting sustainable land practices. Following treaties between 1851 and 1855, Kalapuya people were dispossessed of their indigenous homeland by the United States government and forcibly removed to the Coast Reservation in Western Oregon. The city of Eugene is built within the traditional homelands known as the Kalapuya Ilahi. Kalapuya descendants are citizens of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians of Oregon, and continue to make contributions in our communities here and across the lands. We acknowledge the inherent political sovereignty of the 9 federally recognized tribal nations in the state of Oregon and all American Indian Alaska Native people who live here. As we open this meeting, I have a couple of ceremonial items to do first. And there are 2 proclamations. The first is Fair Housing Month. Whereas the month of April has been designated as Fair Housing Month by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, Office HUD, Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity. And whereas the Federal Fair Housing Act enacted on April 11th, 1968, and the Federal Fair Housing Act amendments of 1988 prohibit discriminatory housing practices. And whereas the Fair Housing Act, as amended, and other federal laws ensure all individuals receive equitable treatment in the pursuit of their housing choices. And whereas the Oregon protected classes, and whereas the federal protected classes include race, color, national origin, religion, sex, disability, and familial status. And whereas the Oregon protected classes include race, color, national origin, religion, sex, disability, familial status, sexual orientation, marital status, source of income, and domestic violence survivorship. And whereas the Eugene City Code protected classes include race, religion, color, sex, national origin, ethnicity, marital status, familial status, domestic partnership status, age, sexual orientation, source of income, or disability. And whereas Members of protected classes are increasingly and disproportionately more vulnerable to displacement, rental housing discrimination, poor quality housing, and barriers to opportunity due to rising home ownership and rental housing costs. And whereas the impacts of barriers to housing negatively impact households' social, economic, and personal health, and whereas solutions to creating and protecting rental housing choice and home ownership require all programs of government to affirmatively address the removal of barriers to housing choice, and whereas the Fair Housing Act requires the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and recipients of federal funds from HUD to affirmatively further the policies and purposes of the Fair Housing Act, also known as Affirmative Furthering Fair Housing. And whereas the City of Eugene, as a recipient of federal funding, extends the obligation to affirmatively further fair housing and access to opportunity to all departments, their partners, programs, activities, and funding. Now, therefore, I, Lucy Finnis, Mayor of the City of Eugene, Oregon, do hereby proclaim April 2022 to be Fair Housing Month in Eugene and encourage all residents to observe this month by joining the effort to promote fair housing for all. And a second important acknowledgement related also to housing, a proclamation to join House America. To all to whom these presents shall come, whereas the City of Eugene is committed to ensuring that all residents have a safe and affordable place to live, and whereas homelessness continues to impact over 3,000 of our residents, and a lack of housing remains a barrier to the health, safety, well-being, employment, and education for these individuals and families. And whereas more than 580,000 people on a given night were experiencing homelessness in America when the COVID-19 pandemic began and had to endure the COVID-19 pandemic without the safety and protection of a stable home, while the homelessness crisis has been further impacted and or exacerbated during and due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas the most effective approach to solving homelessness is the housing first approach, which entails identifying and assisting households experiencing homelessness to obtain permanent housing quickly, without treatment or sobriety preconditions, and with few to no barriers, through housing counseling and navigation assistance, tailored levels of rental assistance, and or wraparound supportive services as needed. And whereas the American Rescue Plan provides communities with significant new resources to address homelessness, including 70,000 emergency housing vouchers and $5 billion in grants through the Home Investment Partnerships Program, and $350 billion in state and local recovery funds through the Department of Treasury. And whereas House America, launched on September 21, 2021, is a partnership between the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness, states, and communities to respond with urgency to address the crisis of homelessness. And whereas through House America, HUD Secretary Marcia L. Fudge calls on state and local leaders to set and achieve ambitious goals for rehousing households currently experiencing homelessness and developing new supportive and affordable housing units. Whereas the City of Eugene is committed to working with HUD and the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness to use American Rescue Plan resources and other federal, state, and local resources to make progress towards ending homelessness. Now, therefore, I, Lucy Finnis, Mayor of City of Eugene, do hereby announce and proclaim to all citizens that as of March 30, 2022, the City of Eugene proudly joins House America and pledges to respond with urgency to homelessness in our community by setting and achieving ambitious rehousing and housing creation goals. Thank you for both listening to both of those long messages around housing. It's a priority for this council, this community. We do a lot of work on it and appreciate the time to attend to that. And now our first order of business is committee reports and items of interest. I know at least two counselors have reports. Counselor Syret, why don't you take it away, and Counselor Groves?
Sure. So thank you, Mayor. It's great to be here in our new space, even though we haven't yet been able to welcome the public in as well. So I just wanted to share that the mayor and I had the privilege of going to Washington, D.C. this past week on a trip that is called the United Front. This is a collaborative lobbying effort with regional jurisdictions. It was the 37th year of the United Front, which has included the city of Eugene every time, but different other partners. So this year it was City of Eugene, City of Springfield, Lane County, Lane Transit District, Willamette Lane Parks District, and Springfield Public Schools. And we had elected representatives from each of those jurisdictions, and we met with both of our senators, our congressmen, White House staff, Housing and Urban Development, Environmental Protection Agency, the Federal Transportation Authority, and the Department of Transportation, as well as the governor's liaison to our federal agencies. And we had the opportunity, which was an unusual one, to thank many people for funding that we've received, including funding for 2 new Cahoots vans for our Franklin Boulevard redesign, for the CARES Act funding and the ARPA funding that the mayor just referenced in her proclamation. And just as importantly, we had a chance to get to know each other as local elected officials between our jurisdictions, and strengthen our relationships with each other so we can come back here to Lane County and hopefully do good work together.
Thank you. And Councilor Groves.
Thank you, Mayor. And I too appreciate the opportunity to be here in person, and I long for the day the public can join us in this really nice setting. Mayor and Council, I want to talk tonight about a street that's being proven to be more dangerous to pedestrians and bicycles, and that's the 500 block of Pearl Street. People are walking across mid-block. I had family down visiting from out of town back this summer, and we had a near miss ourselves on that stretch of street, and it's going to get more populated as the weather becomes nicer. Before you tonight, I would like to make a motion to help convert the southern half of that street into a complete street, which is in keeping with our work towards Vision Zero and for making our city streets as safe as possible. This proposal has 3 contributors, and that's the City of Eugene, Lane County, and the Obie Company, contributing to make this a safer environment for, again, our pedestrians and our bicyclists. Second. And with that, I haven't made the motion yet, but thank you. I move to authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with Obie Development to allow for the city's contribution of $209,000 for Obie's privately engineered public improvement project in accordance with the requirements of Eugene Code 2.1430, and to reconcile any needed budget action through the supplemental budget process.
Sorry, second.
All right, thank you. And now I'm just going to ask, is there any way of adjusting the screen so that I can also see Councilor Clark on the? Great, thank you. Are there any questions or discussion on the motion? Okay.
Well, are we just going to vote on it just like that? Nobody wants to.
It's motion. That's why I'm opening it for questions and comments. That's why I'm opening the floor. So
I'm all for safety, especially with sidewalks and crossing the street. I think the Market District is coming on beautifully, and it's a real benefit to us. I'm very concerned about getting from the Market District to downtown. I call 6th and 7th a river. And I've talked to Mr. Obie often about that. That's a joint project we need to work on together, which he agrees. So it's a little bit hard because it's half of the money we got from the MUPD for 1059, and it's exactly the amount of money we got for the alley. So it feels a little weird to me. I'd rather have the money for 6th and 7th, but I agreed that as vote for safety and goodwill for future projects, I will support this. I am interested, though, from city manager, what we're going to do about that missing money.
About which?
The money that we're not going to have. In one of your
Oh.
emails, you said that we would have to figure that out.
Yeah, so what when we come back with the supplemental budget action, we'll have sorted out exactly what pool of money what they're proposing is using the money that they paid for the alley vacation, and that we would be making an equal investment to that. That money technically is sitting in a fund that we use to pay for off-street bike paths and bridges. So we'll either be pulling that from a different fund, like if it's an eligible fund for ARPA or something like that, or we'll be figuring out how to refill that fund so that we continue to do that same work. So that will all be part of a supplemental budget action.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Counselor Zelenka?
Yeah, I'm really uncomfortable with this. This is kind of an unexpected thing, and without hardly any conversation at the council, other than no questions. And this is $250,000 without discussion. I think that we should have a conversation public about this more, and without more information and without more public discussion about it, I'm disinclined to support it.
Okay, Counselor Surratt?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm inclined to support the motion. I do have the benefit of having had conversations about this project with OB Company and as well as with Matt Rodriguez, the head of our public works. So I have more context than some of the other counselors, so I can understand some of the hesitation. I was initially hesitant to take that money out of our bike ped. With a commitment that we will backfill that from in supplemental budget. I feel better about that. I do think there is a need there. I know we have needs throughout the city in terms of safety, but I think there's an acute need there because of the commercial activity that's being generated. In effect, the projects there between 5th and 6th on Pearl have become very successful, and they're going to be more successful now that we're coming out of the pandemic. So that type of success generates a lot of activity. And I think there is a danger of a bad automobile pedestrian conflict there that this project would help alleviate. On the topic of 6th and 7th, I'll just say, several years ago, I had the chance to go to more than one urban planning conference. And I think one of the ways we could really improve 6th and 7th is to make them two-way. And that would actually help with this idea of they are each like a river. That is part of the reason for that. So that's a big conversation, but I think it's one we really need to take on. And I look forward to getting to that conversation when the time comes.
Hey, thank you. Counselor Clark and then Counselor Keating.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. My understanding of an affirmative vote on this motion is that Sarah will come back to us with further detail, and this simply starts the process. Am I correct about that, Manager?
No, I think an affirmative vote on this would signal to OB Development that we are going to make the $209,000 commitment. What would be coming back to you is details about what funding stream is part of the supplemental budget, but they will take that commitment and commence construction.
Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Keating.
Thank you, Mayor. I hear Councilor Zelenka's concern and the need to have more public engagement, but I also recognize the acute need as I have, I don't know if I should say this, Mayor, EPD is probably listening. I've jaywalked after getting some ice cream to go back to my parking spot in that 5th Street area, and it was dicey. You're playing Frogger. And so I recognize that there's a vital, acute need for public safety. There are also a whole host of other places in the community where there are vital, acute needs. I think of just a block north, where we walk out of Cornucopia and within 5 feet, you're at train tracks. We are along Amazon, by the high school. We need sidewalks on Fox Hollow. There's a lack of sidewalks where a car flipped today, and thankfully there are no fatalities. So I'm willing to support the motion because of the acute need, but I would ask colleagues that in the future to maybe give some time for us to absorb this, and or if there are other acute emerging needs that come up like this, that we do consider them at the moment, because if we wait and God forbid someone else gets ice cream, jaywalks across the street and get hit by a car and we're not taking action, that's on us. I'll support this motion.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Councilor Gross.
Just adding another piece to this. Thank you. I do appreciate the comments, and I do realize this is kind of coming with short notice, but there is a time sensitivity with construction and getting in the construction queue, so this can be hopefully completed as we're going into the warmer weather. And the other thing that I think elevates this project is just the sheer numbers of people that are there now, but they're also being anticipated and expected in the future. And, my experience, I've seen a lot of vehicle pedestrian accidents, and they're horrific. The fact that, we can take action to make the public safer in a vulnerable, high traffic or pedestrian foot traffic area, I think raises this to a level. So I do appreciate the discussion, but I also understand normally we probably wouldn't be moving this quickly.
Thank you. And I see Councilor Evans. Take it away, Councilor Evans.
I'm sorry, Mayor. My hand isn't dark enough. I need to change the color of my hand. But anyway, no, this is one of the I don't want to say rare, but infrequent examples of public-private partnership that really is to the public benefit. If you get the city of Eugene, Lane County, and the Obie Company all on the same page around public safety, I think that that's a real positive. I was downtown there just Saturday, going through the Nike store, and the same thing. It's hard to cross that street, and a lot of people are not going to go up to the corner, up to the light, and use the crosswalk. They're just going to bolt across the street. So it's an accident that's waiting to happen. And we do need to have a really clear, safe path to our riverfront development from the downtown area and from the 5th Street Public Market and the adjoining most recent development by the Obie Company. So I really support this motion. I think that we should move forward with it. And for me, it doesn't require a whole lot of conversation. This is a no-brainer. Let's get this done.
Thank you. Councilor Zelenka, one more comment.
Yeah, I understand the issue. I understand the safety concern and don't disagree with it. But this is really poor public process that we're doing here. I think council should reconsider taking an issue that the public has heard about 10 minutes ago and for $250,000 and voting yes on it I just think that's not the way we should run business in the city. So I'll be voting no.
Okay, thank you. I think with that, if everyone's had a chance to speak, we're ready for vote. All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and opposed. 1. So that passes 7-1. Thank you very much, Council Groves, for bringing that to the table. Appreciate the short timeline, and it is not the way we would prefer to do this, but it is the situation we are faced with in this case. So thank you all. Thank you all for acting on that. Okay, next up is a consent calendar.
I move to approve the items on consent calendar 1.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. Thank you. That passes. And now we are ready for the public forum. Let's see. The public forum is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the city council on any city-related issues, except for those items which have already been heard by a hearings official or are on tonight's agenda as a public hearing. Each person will have 2.5 minutes to speak. When it is your turn, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward if known. The timer and lights indicate the time you have to speak. A yellow light will come on when you have 15 seconds to complete your comments. The red light indicates the end of the 2.5 minutes. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the moderator to announce the speakers.
Thank you, Mayor. Our first speaker is going to be Jeff Althouse, followed by Michaela Cappage. Jeff, please unmute.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeff Althouse, and I live at 439 Almaden Street. I'm in Ward 7. Mayor Venice, City Manager Maderi, and City Council members, thank you for holding this public session to hear from our community as you consider banning new natural gas infrastructure. This policy change will have unintended consequences for my business and our local economy. I'm the founder of Oakshire Brewing, a locally owned and independent brewing company here in Eugene. I am committed to making the world a better place for our future. This extends to what I eat, my decision to not reproduce, and how I live my life every day. I run my business with the same level of commitment to climate positive actions that make a real difference. We recapture our CO2 from fermentation and use it to carbonate our beer, and we directly support the health of the watershed that supplies us with our brewing water. We base our decisions on data. We look at the positive and negative consequences. I ask you to do the same before you make this choice. I run an exceptional business making artisan beer in small batches, and I make that beer using natural gas. If you ban natural gas for our company, we would have to move out of Eugene. The retrofit for our plant is cost prohibitive. Please understand the implications of your decisions. Infeasibility waiver processes would require us to ask city officials for permission to use natural gas or permission to run our business. This does not promote a healthy economy. Thankfully, it's not one or the other. Reducing natural gas use in Eugene is not the single solution to addressing climate change. Let's work together to design a climate positive action plan for Eugene that all stakeholders can get behind. Eugene can become a model city for addressing climate change if activists, small businesses, city council, and industry work together to build a long-term plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Next is Michaela Cappage, followed by Eloise Parrish Mueller.
Hello, my name is Michaela Cappage, and I'm a resident of Ward 3 here in Eugene. Mayor Venice and City Council, thank you for providing this opportunity for testimony. I'm testifying to thank you for your votes to advance critical climate policy and to ask you to do more to ensure a livable climate for future Oregonians. In particular, I want to thank you for the November vote that put in motion the necessary work sessions to discuss requiring newly constructed commercial, residential, and industrial buildings to be electric only. Building electrification is a core policy that will be necessary in reaching a clean energy future. Requiring buildings to use electric appliances for heating, cooling, and cooking would head off the release of 9 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalents if adopted statewide in Oregon. Eugene stands to be the first city to require electrification in new buildings. As part of leading Oregon into a clean energy future, I'm strongly requesting council members to direct staff to draft ordinance language to require all electric construction for new buildings by 2023. This ordinance language should contain a similar infeasibility waiver to the one adopted by Sacramento and should be prioritized by staff and returned to this council at a work session no later than May 31st, 2022. It used to be that to heat our homes, we had to burn stuff, whether that be wood or coal or fracked fossil gas. That's not true anymore. The technology in the form of electric appliances hooked up to a clean grid is real. The future is here, and it can be better for our health and cleaner for our environment than what we're doing now. Drafting ordinance language to require electric construction in new buildings is a step towards bringing that future into view, and I call on this council to take that step today. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Naya, I'm just going to jump in for a minute and note that we have 80 people signed up to speak. And so any of you who can shorten your comments will provide more opportunity for a larger number of people to speak. We do limit the total duration of the forum to 90 minutes. So just a thank you. If you can help one another have more time, that would be great.
And just to inform all of you that the 90 minutes will conclude at 9:32 p.m. Thank you, Michaela. Next is Eloise Parrish Mueller, followed by Onward Eugene.
Hi, my name is Eloise Parrish Mueller. I'm a student at the University of Oregon, a lifelong Eugene resident, and a member of Sunrise Eugene. And I'm here today to speak in support of the goals of the Fossil Free Eugene Coalition. With the stalling of climate policy at the national level, the importance of local action has never been more clear. Eugene has the chance to concretely demonstrate our commitment to climate leadership and a healthier, innovative city by passing an ordinance mandating electric new construction in residential and commercial buildings by 2023, and initiating a planned and economically just and sustainable transition off of fossil fuels for existing buildings in our community. Northwest Natural has made it abundantly clear that they, like any fossil fuel corporation, are motivated by financial profit incentives, not the best interest of customers or the environment or our community. As someone who lives in a house that's currently reliant on natural gas, not by my personal choice, I was disgusted to hear that Northwest Natural is proposing a rate increase of almost 12% within less than a year of the previous rate hike, while at the same time arguing that they should be allowed to continue expanding in the community because of their supposed benefits to consumers. Completely illogical and proves goes against everything that they are claiming. Natural gas companies are not reliable partners for climate action, and building electrification and real renewable energy are the answer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eloise. Next is Onward Eugene, followed by Sam Tyler. And Onward Eugene, please state your full name and ward if known.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Samantha Roberts with the Eugene Chamber. Apologies, I would have renamed myself, but I didn't have the option through Zoom. I'm here tonight, like others, to speak about the work that you have coming to you on Wednesday, and specifically around it's no secret that our world is changing. Human-caused climate change is no longer deniable and hasn't been for a very long time. We know we need to act quickly and in a way that doesn't compromise the delicate ecosystem on which we've built our society. A local economy that provides jobs, which pay for housing, food, clothing, and other necessities. A local economy that funds the infrastructure we all require and like public education, roads, sewers, and even climate policy implementation. And yet we know that any other major policy requires a deep understanding of its impact on local community. Take, for example, the exemplary work of your staff that you talked about earlier this evening in the city's greatest public involvement process of its history around the Middle Housing Code Amendment project. That volume of work for this significant policy is admirable and something the majority of our community is quite proud of. But for a similarly scaled policy and consideration, we've seen virtually no public engagement despite the stated goal to have a policy in place within mere months. And there was work done around the Climate Action Plan 2.0, but since that time around electrification specifically, we haven't seen that same level of engagement. This is one of the many conversations the city will have with regard to climate policy. We should set an example for communities to follow. Pull industry leaders with livelihoods and employees' lives at stake to the table and ask them, how does this affect you? How can we make changes in a way that support you? There are community members with deep concerns for their employees, their neighbors, and their children's future. Lastly, we want to ask you this evening as your elected officials to do something maybe a bit challenging, but to condemn a concerning trend that we're witnessing among climate activist groups that threaten the livelihoods of businesses engaging in these questions and expressing concerns. It should go without saying that in a democratic society, we are allowed to hold divergent opinions and maintain bodily, financial, and emotional safety. Please speak up about this and demand this expectation of your community. Thank you so much for your time and your consideration of this and many other policies on your docket. Have a great night.
Thank you, Samantha. Next is Sam Tyler, followed by Dylan Plummer.
Mayor Venice, City Council, and City Manager Vendry, thank you for providing this opportunity for testimony. My name is Sam Tyler, and I'm currently a resident of Ward 4. I've grown up in Eugene, and I'm currently a second year at the University of Oregon. I have seen the effects of climate change on the community firsthand. These effects result in summer skies choked with smoke and the overwhelming feeling of dread that comes from 70-degree days that would otherwise have contained rain in years past. This feeling of climate anxiety is only beginning for my generation, but the City Council has the ability to start the path to changing our future. But continuing the great work the City Council did last fall and mandating that all future residential, commercial, and industrial buildings should be built 100% electric by 2023, we would take the great first steps towards a livable future. I also request that the council look to mandate that no new gas hookups should be installed and incentivize the use of electric appliances. Additionally, gas companies like Northwest Natural should not be allowed to incentivize their products, as they cause so much harm to the people and the environment that surround them. The time is here for the City Council to do all these things and more. It is time to pass strong policy that will decarbonize our already existing buildings. The transition to 100% renewable energy will inevitably happen in Oregon. The decision of whether Eugene will be a leader or a follower in this endeavor will be made tonight. Will our city lead the nation in electrification, or will it fall behind? An ordinance must be drafted for Eugene by the end of next month. Lastly, as a renter and a member of the Fossil Free Eugene Coalition, I support the full package of tenant protections being considered by the council. Affordable and sustainable housing is our first line of defense against the impacts of the climate crisis. As such, it is critical for the city to do everything in its power to ensure that vulnerable renters are able to stay housed at these trying times. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Next is Dylan Plummer, followed by Suzanne O'Shea, ABC Board.
Hello, Mayor Venice and City Council. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. My name is Dylan Plummer, and I'm a senior campaign representative for the environmental nonprofit, the Sierra Club. I work and live in Ward 3. And I had kind of
Recording in
go
progress.
off the cuff, and I'll try to keep it short because I know we have a lot of folks testifying. But I really want to respond to two testimonies we've heard so far and some of the misinformation that's being pushed by Northwest Natural and other industry-friendly groups. I think it's absolutely reprehensible to see how much effort and industries are putting into misleading our community about what is actually at hand here and the policies that we're talking about. Because of course, as you've heard from some of our really articulate and strong grassroots advocates, we're advocating for a mandate for new construction to be all electric. So this wouldn't actually affect existing businesses or businesses that wanted to purchase existing buildings or even to provide new renovations on those existing building footprints. So we're just talking purely about new development, because as they say, when you're in a hole, stop digging. You're in a climate crisis. We should absolutely stop expanding existing fossil fuel infrastructure. And simultaneously, we're also talking about creating opportunities for those businesses that still do rely on gas, such as coffee roasteries and breweries, to still have access, even if they wanted to build an entirely new building in a new footprint using the feasibility waiver process. As a tenant, I think the claim that a mandate for electrification removes choice is absolutely farcical, because I have never had choice of the energy system that my housing uses. And I do also have lung issues, and I would love to have a choice to protect my health and my safety in our climate, instead of having to breathe polluted air from gas and know that every time I turn on my heat, I am part of the problem contributing massive amounts of greenhouse gas to our atmosphere. So with that, I would just say, please reject the bullying of big industry and the state's largest fossil fuel company, and take action to pass common sense climate policy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dylan. Next is Suzanne O'Shea, followed by Brian Stewart.
Hello, my name is Suzanne O'Shea. I'm the treasurer of the Active Bethel Community Neighborhood Association. I've lived in and owned property in Eugene's Ward 6 since 1984. I want to thank you for your time. The city fire department has divided the city into evacuation zones so people can be notified through the alert system if their neighborhood has an emergency requiring evacuation. There are 5 zones in the Active Bethel community. In an effort to strengthen our community, educate our neighbors in emergency preparedness, find volunteers to maintain our parks, and help our neighbors feel more connected, we are using the same zone boundaries and have chosen a park in each zone. We will be having events this summer at each of the 5 parks we have chosen. We've been collecting information for several months from our neighbors, and we'll be distributing surveys beginning April 23rd to identify what improvements our neighbors would like to see in Bethel, and we'll be doing much more at the zone park events. This information informs us in how to represent Bethel and will be crucial when Bethel is chosen by the city for our area plan. The more information we collect, the more we can provide input in our area plan, and the more our community will be expecting to see results. So time to begin our area plan is of the essence. I am hoping that you understand the urgency and have figured out a way to move up the area plan for Bethel. We've been neglected for 40 years, and our neighbors need to have a voice in the future of Bethel. We have volunteered many hours in the last few years building momentum, and we're hoping our neighbors won't become discouraged from inaction. Thank you, especially Councilor Evans, for advocating for us.
Thank you, Suzanne. Next is Brian Stewart, followed by Lynn Woodrich.
Thank you, Mayor Venus and City Councilors and City Manager Maderi. My name is Brian Stewart. I'm a resident of Portland, Oregon, and I'm the founder of Electrify Now. We are a statewide voluntary organization educating the public about the benefits of renewable energy and electrification of our homes and transportation. We work in conjunction with HVAC installers, small businesses, builders, plumbers, homeowners, faith-based and community groups who all see the economic and climate benefits of electrification. The truth about electrification is that it results in homes and buildings that are safer and healthier, air and water that is cleaner, appliances that are more energy efficient and actually work better than their gas burning counterparts. All of the many studies that have compared electric products to gas powered products come to the same conclusion. Electric solutions are more affordable to operate. They're better for the environment. They're far less carbon polluting. They're easier to clean and maintain, and they just plain outperform gas technology, which has literally not changed meaningfully in over 50 years. Electrify Now has worked with hundreds of homeowners across the state who have switched from gas to electric. And if you ask any one of them about cooking with an induction stove or heating and cooling their homes with a heat pump, they will rave about these modern high-performance products. The gas industry uses its vast marketing dollars to make the claim that it's possible to decarbonize the gas system, aims to scare it about and scare tactics are a strategy to delay the inevitable transition to clean sources of energy. Renewable energy and electric heating and cooling are the future for economic reasons, safety reasons, environmental reasons, and because electric solutions are superior. But we're here today because we can't wait for market forces alone to make this transition happen. We need to act urgently and sensibly. As such, I urge you to move forward as quickly as possible with an ordinance mandating 100% electric new construction and not allow the gas industry to continue to delay climate action and cast doubt on settled science about the environmental and economic benefits of electrification. Thank you in advance for taking these steps to urgently address climate change and for helping to create a safer, more equitable, and healthier and more prosperous Eugene. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So next was going to be Lynn Woodrich, but it looks like, oh, she's going right now, so it'll just be one moment. So it'll be Lynn Woodrich followed by Todd Miller. So I am not seeing Lynn anymore, so we're going to do Todd Miller followed by Gretchen Miller. Hi, Todd. Please unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Mayor Venice and members of the City Council of Eugene, my name is Todd Miller and I'm a member of Ward 1. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the proposed ban on natural gas hookups in new construction. As someone who is a year-round bike commuter, I share your commitment to reducing the city's greenhouse gas emissions and shrinking my own carbon footprint. To achieve this, our community needs to approach the problem in a thoughtful way that's guided by solid data, not corporate interests or well-funded activist groups. City government should set greenhouse gas emission targets and then require energy providers to meet those targets in a way that's safe and sustainable, but also reliable, equitable, and as importantly, economical. Banning natural gas hookups, in my opinion, is a short-sighted, crowd-pleasing attempt to meet our climate goals. It distracts us from the real goal, which is to decouple the generation of energy from the production of greenhouse gases. The natural gas industry in general, but Northwest Natural specifically, are working toward carbon neutrality through various technologies such as renewable natural gas, clean hydrogen, and carbon capture and storage. Governments should not choose which technology is the winner and which is the loser, but they should allow all forms of energy that meet our climate goals. Banning natural gas in new construction would close off access to all these innovations and deprive new owners of the freedom and opportunity to choose. You can't reduce our community's increasing demand of energy through legislation, but you can hold our energy producers to account for meeting our greenhouse gas reduction targets. With limited options to expand hydropower and the intermittent nature of wind and solar, we need to leverage a diverse array of energy sources. Please leave the door open to all forms of green energy in Eugene and oppose any ban on natural gas hookups. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Todd. Next is Gretchen Miller, followed by Tim Morris.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Venice, council staff. My name is Gretchen Miller on 946 West 10th Alley, which is in Ward 1, but I have to say I am quite fond of all parts of Eugene, really. I have favorite parts all over town, and I'm not related to Todd Miller at all. There's a lot of us Millers out here. It is really critical, I think, to move this ordinance ahead. I am reminded of the old saying about when to plant a tree. The best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is this week. I feel the same way about this ordinance. The second best time is right now. New construction should be electric. There will be plenty of opportunities to use such natural gas that is created, say, from landfills or from the use of cows and various other things. There's plenty of existing natural gas that can more than take up that kind of technological fix. That's really not the issue. Infeasibility waivers for new construction can certainly work. Existing construction, existing businesses can continue to function. new and improved technology will improve the possibilities, and we can obviously continue to work on the matter and live with that. But the climate crisis is now, it is hard to see. It is hard to see that what we do, what I do, it's hard to see that me getting on my bicycle morning after morning really makes a difference, because each thing we do makes only a little difference, but we all have to do it. And this is another thing, it won't solve the problem, but we all have to do our part. I can't help but remember the quote from Upton Sinclair, who was quite a guy, by the way. He says, "It is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on his not understanding it." You'll hear from a lot of people whose salary depends on them not understanding the problem here. But I urge you to dig out that backbone and do the right thing here. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Gretchen. Next is Tim Morris, followed by Lynn Woodrich.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Mayor, City Council, and Manager, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. For the record, my name is Timothy Morris, and I live in Ward 1. I'm here tonight to talk about why CETA supports a fossil-free Eugene and the recent ads that are being run by Northwest Natural, which talks about how the decision is of taking away choice. Which I'm sure my colleagues will also be going into as well. So I want to highlight the science is very clear. Climate change is real, it is man-made, and we only have a short amount of time to make major changes before damage is irreversible. The science is also clear about what it is like to live in a home with gas infrastructure. Children who grow up in a gas home with gas stoves, have a 42% higher risk of developing asthmatic symptoms. Homes with gas stoves have somewhere between 50% to over 400% higher nitrogen dioxide levels in their homes than homes with electric stoves, which can lead to heart failure and asthma. Renters, which is a group of people that I hope comes to no surprise to you, is a passion of mine, do not get a choice in what type of dwelling that they live in. With such a tight rental market, renters will take what is available at the time, not what best fits their needs. Right now in our community, we have senior citizens and disabled renters who are living at home with only gas infrastructure, which is seriously contributing to their failing health. The intersection between climate change and housing justice is also clear. Last summer, over 100 people lost their lives in a record-breaking heat wave, many of whom were in their own apartments, but their landlords refused to provide their right to cooling. These renters did not have a choice in their dwellings and do not have a choice in how quickly their government addressed climate change. Tenants rely on our local governments to protect us, to plan for our future well-being, and to make sure that decisions that help keep us safe, housed, and healthy. We have no choice but to be reliant on your choice not to be swayed by misinformation campaigns, and to invest in our future and the future of your constituents. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your energy and efforts and all that you do.
Thank you, Tim. Next is Lynn Woodrich, followed by Danny Noonan.
My name's Lynn Woodrich. I'm the Active Bethel Community Co-Chair living in Ward 6 with my 93-year-old dad, and have been a homeowner in the Bethel portion of Ward 8 for over 25 years. ABC's long-range plan to reduce the heat island effects in the Bethel neighborhoods by planting trees is off to a great start. Thanks to all the volunteers, the City of Eugene for budgeting for 132 trees along Highway 99, to eWeb and the city for tree planting grants, the grand total of trees planted in Bethel this year will be over 250 trees. We plan to continue planting until Bethel's tree canopy coverage is equal to the more affluent parts of Eugene. Thank you for scheduling work sessions for the health overlay zone and risk bonds. With the shutdown of J.H. Baxter, it has become even more clear that the city needs the health overlay zone and new tools to deal with chronic toxic polluters, ensure polluters have insurance to cover the cost of cleanup when they shut down, and stop new polluters from locating here. These tools will be a critical piece in the future planning for our area. At our upcoming ABC General Meeting on April 20th, we'll be asking for ideas for businesses the residents would like to see in Bethel, and we have invited experts from Centro Latino Americano Huerto de la Familias Cambios business program, Eugene's Chamber of Commerce Onward Eugene, and LCC's Small Business Development Center to encourage residents to learn how to start their own business. This is a small step towards Bethel's plan for growing and a thriving area. You're all invited to listen to our Zoom meeting. I'm hoping that you understand the urgency and have figured out a way to move up the area plan for Bethel. We've been neglected for 40 years, and the neighbors need to have a voice in the future of Bethel. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Next is Danny Noonan, followed by Paige Hopkins.
Mayor Venice, City Councillors and City Manager Maderi. My name is Danny Noonan. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a climate and energy strategist with Breach Collective, a 501c3 organization based in Eugene and Portland. I am also a resident of Ward 7. I am testifying on behalf of the Fossil Free Eugene Coalition, and I wish to focus my brief testimony on the critical urgency of taking action to reduce building emissions in our community. 2 weeks ago, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released its latest report, which, among other things, presented detailed scenarios and pathways for mitigating climate change to within tolerable levels. Paragraph C.7 of the report summary for policymakers found that greenhouse gas emissions in buildings should be reduced to 0 by 2050, and that this can be achieved through ambitious policies that combine sufficiency, efficiency, and renewable energy measures. Such policies would have positive development outcomes and would also adapt buildings to future climate impacts. On the other hand, that same paragraph also warned that policies that have a low or insufficient level of ambition risk locking in greenhouse gas use in buildings for decades. Simply put, there is no time left to delay tackling gas emissions in our city's buildings. We are already seeing the consequences of the delay that has occurred between last November's work session and this Wednesday's work session, with Northwest Natural and other fossil fuel aligned interests using that time to prepare and execute an expensive multi-front PR campaign that is designed to scare and mislead businesses, intimidate decision makers, create false hope around pie in the sky carbon capture and storage technologies that, to date, have either been enormously expensive or failed to reduce carbon capture emissions where they have been deployed, and above all, keep methane gas flowing through homes and endangering community health and safety for as long as possible. I encourage Council to stay strong in the face of industry pressure and propaganda, and to direct staff at Wednesday's work session to draft ordinance language mandating electrification of new buildings in the city, with the inclusion of an appropriate infeasibility waiver mechanism for difficult to electrify processes such as coffee roasting and brewing. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Next is Paige Hopkins, followed by Joanne Shatola.
Hi, Mayor Venice and City Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify today. I am Paige Hopkins, speaking as a resident of Ward 3 and the Climate Justice Organizer for Beyond Toxics. I want to thank you for your work on supporting building electrification and helping transition our community to a clean energy future for all. It is vital for the City Council to move forward with a requirement for all new construction to be electric, followed by a plan to equitably electrify all of Eugene's buildings. We cannot allow the fossil fuel industry to continue to obstruct and delay smart climate policy like building electrification that will reduce emissions, save people money, and improve public health. Passing a strong building electrification policy will set Eugene as a leader and example for other cities throughout the nation to follow. There is also a strong overlap between large GHG emitters and large toxic emitters in our community. With data pulled from the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, we have found that 15 of the top 19 industrial GHG emitters are also on the list of Eugene's highest toxic emitters. These industrial emitters are bad on both accounts. As the city prepares to regulate GHG and toxic emissions, it is critical these facilities be included given their high impacts on both climate pollution and public health. City council members should vote to support ordinance language requiring all construction be all electric by 2023. This draft ordinance language should be requested to come back to council at a work session no later than May 31st of 2022. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Paige. Next is Joanne Shatola, followed by Nicole Noceto.
Mayor, Council, thank you. I'm Joanne from Ward 5. I've watched the work session regarding
renter protections, and I was concerned at your lack of knowledge regarding tenancy terminations. Unquestionably, there was enthusiasm about proceeding. You really didn't care about much except the tenant, and some stressed the desire to push forward with displacement assistance without even being informed of how displacements happen and how we already have to pay tenants displacement assistance in certain situations and give the tenants 90-day notice. I hope to explain tenant displacement assistance before you move forward in that direction, but I want to talk about some practical thoughts regarding phase one. Give the tenants a Senate Bill 608. I think that we should put it on the internet, require the landlord to provide a link. It's easy access, saves paper. It's a win-win. Regarding termination and photo documentation of property, there's too many variables. Implementation needs to be practical and doable. Let me talk about the implementation of your community safety tax, which I totally support. But it's so awkward that the software providers are having a problem writing it. The tax program, it's been a nightmare this season. And so when you implement stuff, let's make it doable. Photo documentation isn't practical. Some real things that happened to me that a photo requirement would have no impact. There was urine soaked carpet pad. The tenant doesn't pay their electric bill, and there's stench in the fridge from rotten food. Some tenant dismantled stair rails to move something in and out, never put them back properly. We didn't notice till he was gone. The tenant didn't turn on the heat and kept the drapes closed, so mildew was starting. That doesn't take a photo well. I propose the tenant takes whatever photos they want. If the landlord has documentation, that's supporting evidence, but don't make it mandatory on us. Put it on them. Number 3, provide rental history to a tenant upon request. Okay, if you feel it necessary to mandate it, no problem. But it's not okay to ask me to give a rental reference when they haven't moved out yet. All I can swear to is what they paid, when, and the dates, and how much. Number 4, funding your housing navigator. It's a community resource. Good idea. It should be funded by the Eugene community. It's noted as support service for 53% of the community that rents. I hope the comments about making things fair and equitable are true. Since we're moving forward, let's work together to achieve optimal results. Make these protections easy for landlords to properly administer. As I said, the community safety tax was great, but it's unnecessarily costly. If tenant protections are costly, I'm going to pass that cost.
Thank you, Joanne. Your time has concluded. Next is Nicole Noceto, followed by Andy Vabora.
Hi, Mayor and City Councilors. My name is Nicole Noceto. I'm a resident of Ward 1. I appreciate this opportunity to provide testimony in support of fossil-free Eugene. Tonight, I'm urging the Council to prioritize our city's transition away from gas and fossil fuels by drafting ordinance language that would require the electrification of all new construction. I'm a doctor of East Asian medicine and a licensed acupuncturist. Prior to becoming a healthcare provider, I studied and worked in the realm of environmental sciences, which has made me privy to recognizing the direct health consequences of the climate crisis. Most notably, in my clinical practice, I treat a growing number of patients with something the American Psychological Association has coined climate anxiety, a chronic fear of environmental doom. I see this type of anxiety and grief, particularly amongst teenagers, young adults, and marginalized groups who feel powerless facing the threats of environmental toxins and other climate concerns. I treat patients with asthma and other respiratory ailments, migraines and other nervous system disorders, cancer and other immune system disorders, all diseases that have been associated with gas consumption. I also treat patients who clearly have access to medical care. Historically marginalized communities are those most likely to suffer the health consequences of fossil fuel consumption and the least likely to be able to access adequate medical care for any resulting ailments. As a society, we have othered climate and environmental issues, thinking and talking about them as if we are separate from the environments in which we live. To the detriment of our health, we've exclusively focused on the politics and economics of the climate crisis. As a result, people suffer with irreversible health consequences of fossil fuel emissions and industry pollution. Let's continue to be leaders in sustainability here in Eugene and prioritize building electrification as a climate mitigation strategy for the health of our community, our state, and our planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Next is Andy Vabora, followed by Alexander Miller.
Good evening, Mayor Vinnis and Council. My name is Andy Vabora and I live in Ward 7. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input on your evaluation of banning natural gas for new users, especially businesses. Pre-pandemic, direct travel spending exceeded $1 billion annually in Lane County. And during the pandemic, our industry lost half of its more than 11,000 jobs and continues to struggle to fill many of those positions. But the good news is that overall visitor spending is on the rise and transient room tax revenues are on pace to set an all-time high. The hospitality industry has always been resilient, and it's showing once again that it can rise up and be stronger. Economist Henry Fields recently noted that the hospitality industry would contribute the region's fastest employment growth rate in the coming years. This growth is fueled by filling the remaining jobs lost in the pandemic and growing the industry through the expansion of restaurants and commercial lodging in particular. The proposal to ban natural gas for use by new restaurants and hotels specifically will create a significant negative effect on our local economy. Some businesses may look to develop in Springfield, which means our region would still benefit from getting these new jobs. However, this begs the question about what a ban in Eugene truly accomplishes, since the region's airshed would continue to receive the emissions created. Other businesses would simply choose not to develop in the region. Travel Lane County and the hospitality industry fully support the need to control emissions and reduce the impact of climate change. Our region boasts the incredible, accessible outdoor experiences. Whether it's hiking, biking, paddling, or just sitting back and enjoying amazing views, we all want our region to be around for our kids and grandkids and beyond. The council has for many years supported the triple bottom line approach. We encourage the council to take this approach in your analysis of the natural gas issue. Take a thorough and careful look at the issues of energy resiliency, redundancy, and affordability. Sustainability and social equity are important, and so are the economic aspects of this analysis. Thank you for your hard work and thoughtfulness in discussing this important issue.
Thank you, Andy. Next is Alexander Miller, followed by Eugene Peaceworks.
Hello, Mayor Venice, City Council, City Manager Medry. Thank you for providing this opportunity for testimony today. My name is Alexander Miller. I'm a resident in Ward 1. I do work for a nonprofit organization called New Buildings Institute, but I'm testifying on a personal basis today. I'm really encouraged to see that Eugene is making progress on several issues, but in particular, one of the most important issues of our time, and I think the largest issue by which our descendants and the descendants of our descendants are going to judge us, the climate crisis. Our city government has taken a real first step by voting last fall to forward the two motions we've discussed tonight on transitioning to clean electricity. It's important progress. And I'm also glad to see that you on the council are now considering tapping into your authority and resources to advance what I think is a really critical solution to that climate crisis. That's building electrification, using clean electricity instead of burning fossil gas in furnaces and boilers and water heaters. It's one of the easiest and most immediate tools we have available to us here on a local level. It makes a significant, measurable, immediate difference in greenhouse gas emissions with attendant benefits to health for occupants in buildings that are burning gas, like gas stoves, for example. Plus, we don't have to ask individuals to significantly change their life practices. The houses get heated, the water gets heated, it works fine. So first step, we need to stop making things worse, stop investing in new fossil fuel burning infrastructure, expanding that system, and starting in new construction, as this policy proposes, is the way to go. And we in Eugene are poised to join 50 plus other cities that have also employed electrification mandate policies in new construction to take this leading step. It's real leadership, and it's finally here at home in Eugene, in Oregon. Clearly, Northwest Natural sees this as a threat, and they're pulling out all the stops. They're sending scary letters to residential customers. I got one, a couple. They're running these full-page ads. We're seeing this misleading messaging. The confusion from our friend Jeff at Oakshire Brewing was worried about his ability to use natural gas or fossil gas in his existing facility. Let's focus on new facilities. Jeff, I'd love to come have a pint with you and get wonky on the details. That would be a pleasure. Council members, I want to clarify, the time is now to move forward with an ordinance mandating all electric energy supply in new construction as quickly as possible. So please vote to direct staff to draft that ordinance language in residential, commercial, and industrial new construction by 2023.
Thank you, Alexander. Next is Eugene Peaceworks, followed by Bethany Cotton. And Eugene Peaceworks, please state your full name and ward if known.
Yes, Thank you. My name is David Zupin. I'm not speaking for Eugene Peaceworks. I'm a longtime resident of Ward 1 and a retired LCC and 4J teacher. And as grandparents, my wife and I are very concerned about addressing the global climate crisis, especially here in Eugene. Not long ago, we experienced those major fires that were accelerated by that global crisis, and they destroyed communities throughout the state and even threatened Eugene and Springfield. And of course, we all experienced the accompanying smoke, which was extremely dangerous for the health of all of us and terrible for the economy. So we see this as these are clear wake-up calls, and they demand effective, rapid response. And that's why we really appreciated the motions last fall that you adopted as a city council for transitioning the community to clean electricity. But now we see it as urgent to quickly move ahead and implementing these motions, carrying out these motions by developing concrete policy to decarbonize our buildings and pass a ban on new gas hookups. We'd like you to please direct the staff to draft the ordinance language mandating this, mandating that all electric new construction in residential, commercial, and industrial buildings by 2023, that language be presented to you by May 31st. We encourage you to continue to lead the way in transitioning to 100% renewable electricity and not be persuaded or swayed by expensive natural gas corporate PR. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next is Bethany Cotton, followed by Randall Berzer.
Mayor, City Council, and Manager, I'm Bethany Cotton, resident of Ward 7. I ask you to act with urgency that the climate crisis demands and instruct city staff to draft clear ordinance language requiring electrification of all new buildings no later than May 31st. In keeping with a distressing pattern of inaction, 5 months after the council unanimously requested staff to work on the ordinance, we do not have even draft language. Social scientists deem this issue an adaptation gap, the difference between actually implemented adaptation and a societally set goal. Our city has a groundbreaking climate action plan full of inspiring statements, but we are failing to enact what is necessary to realize those goals. That inaction at the local, state, federal, and international levels is at the heart of the epidemic of climate anxiety and grief gripping many. Society has throughout history banned products that pose excessive harm: lead in gas and paint, HCFCs, DDT, asbestos. Each time, industry pulled out all the stops, attacking scientists and healthcare professionals, cherry-picking data, and bearing their own damning studies, hiring lobbyists, and lying to decision makers, all to continue to profit off their toxic product. Each time, industry claimed the sky would fall without their product. It did not. Northwest Natural Gas Corporation is following this tired playbook, gaslighting its customers and the council while co-opting the rhetoric of choice. The company fails to disclose the science on frac gas industry's contribution to climate change, the terrible indoor air pollution health impacts of gas appliance use, which disproportionately impacts low-income and communities of color, while making demonstrably false claims about the capacity of the oxymoronically dubbed renewable natural gas to meet demand, and ignoring entirely that over half of Eugene residents are renters with no ability to choose healthier fuel sources. If this fossil fuel corporation truly cared about choice, they would not fight grassroots democratic efforts to protect our community from the myriad threats posed by frac gas. This ordinance will not prevent someone intent on a home or business with gas from finding one, as infrastructure exists across the city. The choice before you is whether you are committed to the city's climate goals. The corporation is interested in profit. We, your constituents, are interested in preventing the worst impacts of climate change and building a livable future, literally, for this and future generations. The time for delay and equivocation is long past. Please act now for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Bethany. Next is Randall Berzer, followed by Alex Staben.
Hi, I'm Randy Berzer. I live in Ward 2, and I've been a rental owner in Eugene for 25 years. I'm a general contractor and a home inspector. I've put a lot of work and money into my 3 rentals over the years, and I want to provide a nice place for people to live, something that I would feel comfortable living in. I'm concerned about these rental proposals, particularly those regarding debt to income ratios. Lenders typically do not allow more than 30% debt to income ratio on a home mortgage. Lenders want borrowers to be successful to be able to make the loan payments and not go into foreclosure. These proposals would require rental owners to accept tenants who are spending up to 50% of their income on rent, which certainly would be setting some tenants up for failure. When a lease ends in eviction, it is difficult for that tenant to find future rentals for many years. I hear some talk about how being a rental owner is very profitable. I encourage you to look at a house for sale in your neighborhood, figure out what the down payment, mortgage payments, taxes and insurance, maintenance and vacancy costs would be, and look at what rent you would receive. Rental owners want tenants who can and will pay the rent, take care of the property, and be good neighbors. Unfortunately, not all tenants live up to these standards. Rental owners take a risk turning over their properties to tenants. Tenants may not pay on time, may damage the property, may not be good neighbors, and may break their lease. Please also consider how these proposals are unfair to tenants who are responsible with their lives and have good credit. These proposals do nothing to create more housing, nothing to protect rental owners from bad tenants. They're unfair to responsible tenants and will increase the cost for rental owners to do business. I encourage you not to adopt these rental proposals. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Next is Alex Staben, followed by Nicole Lang-Papp.
Hi. Thank you, Mayor Vinnis and City Council for this opportunity to provide testimony. My name is Alex Staben, and I'm a current resident of Ward 3 and a student at the University of Oregon. I'm testifying to thank you for your votes to advance critical climate policy, but that being said, it is crucial to move forward with an ordinance as quickly as possible and not allow the industry to continue to delay climate action and cast doubt on settled science about the environmental and economic benefits that electrification brings. It's fracked gas, not natural gas. I'm requesting that City Council members direct staff to draft ordinance language to require all electric construction for new residential, commercial, and industrial buildings with an infeasibility waiver similar to that adopted by Sacramento by 2023. This ordinance language should be prioritized by staff and come back to council at a work session no later than May 31st, 2022. As a UO student in the Environmental Studies program and a member of the UO Club Climate Justice League and its Fossil Free UO campaign, this is a personal issue. It is imperative that the city progresses climate forward policy that lives up to the greenwashed image it advertises to prospective college students and residents. As a young person contributing to the Eugene economy through my residence here and studying at the UO with the hopes of creating real climate progress in my future and career, I urge you to make the right choice and not simply acknowledge the existence of a problem, but actively work to solve it. We need a just transition from fossil fuel dependence now. Lastly, I'll say, at a Fossil Free UO rally last week, my friend David said the following, which I believe is important framing. Is this affordable? Is it feasible? I think it's time to flip the question on fossil fuels. Is it affordable not to transition? Is it feasible to live in an uninhabitable environment because of our climate crisis? No. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alex. Next is Nicole Lang-Papp, followed by Pam Woodall.
Hi, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to testify tonight. Like she said, my name is Nicole Lang-Papp. I'm a resident of Ward 2, and I'm an early childhood accessible educator in Eugene. I'm testifying today to ask that City Council members vote to direct staff to draft ordinance language mandating that all electric new construction in residential, commercial, and industrial buildings be electric by 2023. This draft ordinance language should be requested to come back to council at a work session no later than May 31st. Opponents of this ordinance have brought up fears on behalf of the children and other high risk and high needs residents in our community. And I'm here kind of to talk about what that means from our perspective as an educator and as an advocate for Eugene children and adults with disabilities. I want to say that I understand the urgency behind investing in fossil-free infrastructure, and I want to provide this perspective to those who may be doubting whether this push forward is what is best for our community's children. Children and other community members with high support needs and disabilities make up the majority of who I work with every day, and these individuals often live with health conditions and other physical disabilities and differences that cause them to see the effects of climate change long before non-disabled members of our community. For them, the time for climate action was yesterday, but certainly must be now. Additionally, nearly weekly, I hear about existential fears of climate disaster and global warming expressed to me by children as young as 3 and 4 years old. This shows me that we need to be moving towards clean energy and infrastructure as quickly as possible. Again, I want to thank you for your consideration, and I would like to reassert my urgent request that City Council members vote to direct staff in ordinance language mandating that all electric new construction in residential, commercial, and industrial buildings by 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Next is Pam Whittle, followed by Martha and Peter Dragovich.
Hi, my name is Pam Waddell, and like Tarjay, Pam Waddell. Anyway, I live in Ward 3, and I'm impressed with the amount of climate consciousness there is out there. I'm not here to talk about that particularly. I'm commenting because of the work session I heard today on middle housing code amendments. Councilor Zelenka mentioned that the height limit didn't seem like a big deal, and it might not be really, but in combination with the lot coverage extension to 75%, it really could be, and depending on where it's located. And the other problem is the one size fits all nature of the code amendment. For instance, in my neighborhood, I live on a block where there's an apartment building, an 8-unit apartment building that occupies 70% of its lot. That lot is the same size as my lot. That apartment building goes up 2 stories and it houses 8 units. With this, with the Planning Commission's code, with the thing they approved, it could go up a 3rd story and yet only be a duplex, and be on my lot and be called middle housing. But as an apartment, it could actually have 12 units. It wouldn't leave room for trees, which I'm hearing is a pretty big concern, particularly with this community that's here tonight. And I'm very concerned about the trees and the climate. And, allowing, there's a lot of talk that the zone amendment allows for smaller units, and it does, but it also allows for much bigger ones. And, there's not enough talking about that. And that's actually what got me most motivated to be involved in this. I didn't object to Parallax original designs for middle housing, because the housing, that size that I was mentioning before, 3 stories, occupying 70% of a 7,000 square foot lot, is a really big place, and it wouldn't fit in the middle of a bunch of 1-story houses, but maybe towards the edge next to something bigger, it would. And that's how Parallax had designed this. But the one size fits all thing puts it anywhere. So that's a problem. Anyway, I invite you to come to my neighborhood. I'd love to do a walk around, show you the apartment, and show you my low-income neighbors who I care very much about. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Next is Peter Dragovich, followed by Noel Studer-Spevek.
Peter Dragovich, resident of Ward 5. Northwest Natural in a recent ad cited a high cost for new electric home construction. The figure was for climate zone 5. Eugene is in zone 4. Their figure for zone 4 shows a 1/3 lower cost, but their zone 4 city is Baltimore. A 2020 study by RMI does not have those defects. RMI found Seattle has new electric homes that, quote, have savings on upfront costs and a 93% reduction in carbon emissions. In 2015, 14% of new single-family homes were built with electric heat pumps in the Pacific region. In 2019, 23% were. In 4 years, our region went from 1 in 7 of new homes being electric to nearly 1 in 4, one of the fastest electric heat pump adoption rates in the nation. That data is from the NAHB. Northwest refers to unintended consequences. Not mentioned are the 50+ cities that have electrified, many in California, Seattle, and New York City. None have repealed their actions. Where are the unintended consequences in those real-world examples? Northwest speculates about inadequate electric supply. However, the largest electric utilities in the state recently issued requests for proposals for new renewable energy generation and received responses that would supply 3 times the renewable energy requested. And yes, grid resiliency was taken into account. Despite Eugene's growth, the demand for electricity has remained flat. This was explained to me by an EWEB commissioner. It's because conservation has been so successful here and throughout the Northwest. The EWEB director informed this council in a public meeting that EWEB can, quote, handle electrification. Northwest raises resilience concerns, but neither gas furnaces nor electric will operate when the power goes out. Both systems require backup. The fan in a gas fireplace, some storage tank gas water heaters, and most tankless gas water heaters will not work without backup. Health issues around gas tricking have been discussed here, and gas furnaces and water heaters conservatively produce about a combined 5 tons of carbon emissions per year versus their electric heat pump counterparts that only produce a combined ½ ton per year, adjusted for Eugene, which would be cut in half when EWEB achieves their goal of 95% renewable energy by 2030. It's not choice when the community is not informed. The bill has come due for using the atmosphere as a dumping ground for fossil fuel gases. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Peter. Next is Noel Studer Spivak, followed by Mike Gamble.
Good evening, Mayor Vinnis and City Council. Thank you for providing this opportunity for testimony. My name is Noel Studer Spivak, representing Families for Climate, a Portland-based nonprofit with members from around the state, including Eugene. And we believe that it's not a matter of if Oregon will transition to 100% renewable electricity, but when. We wholeheartedly support the council's work to transition Eugene's buildings to clean renewable energy. Our family's small Portland-based construction company has transitioned to building clusters of all-electric homes with built-in affordability. We've made it possible for over 45 families to move into clean, energy-efficient homes that align with their health needs and climate values. The excitement of an all-renewable electric future is palpable anytime visitors tour these communities. Like all parents, Families for Climate members want our children to have a safe and predictable future climate. These are the crucial years to put policies in place, and we'll know we're on the right track when parents can choose reading bedtime stories to our kids over attending public hearings. I imagine a time when we feel confident that governments at all levels in all jurisdictions are making the necessary policies fast enough to wind down fossil fuel use and avoid catastrophic planetary heating. We're not there yet, but Eugene City Council gives us hope. We're asking council members to please take the very sane and moderate stance of moving boldly toward clean, renewable electricity for the good of our collective future. We support the infeasibility waiver process for new commercial industrial development where electrification is not an option. By taking steps to draft ordinance language mandating 100% electric new construction by 2023, Eugene will be forging a very real path toward a livable climate for all humanity. Your courage and climate leadership set an example for elected officials around the state and across the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. Next is Mike Gamble, followed by Jacob True. Mike, are you speaking? We cannot hear you.
Yeah, hi, my name is Mike Gamble. I own and operate Northwoods Property Management in Ward 4. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I just wanted to touch base on the continuing adding regulations onto landlords and that the effect it has on the availability and the affordability of rental housing in the Eugene and Lane County. I think we can all agree that we all want affordable and readily available housing for everybody, but the current path we're on really doesn't support this. In order to accommodate everyone who needs rental housing, we have to make it attractive to own rental housing. And over the last couple of years, especially what we've seen in our business, and I've asked other property managers as well, is more and more people, especially your smaller owners that own one or two, as it's gotten more and more complicated to own a rental house, they want to get out of the market. They've taken the opportunity of high real estate prices to get out of the market. We need to support those landlords and make it easier for them to be a landlord and not to overcomplicate it, and then not to add risk to owning a rental property. Many of the regulations that you want to add puts undue risk on the landlord, and when you add risk, they're going to pass that on to the tenants, which again is going to either they'll either get out of the market, which you'll have less rental properties and rents will go up, or B, they'll pass the risk on to the tenant and rents will go up. So in keeping rental housing readily available and affordable, I would ask that that you would consider that when considering the regulations that you plan on voting on and potentially adding onto an already very complicated process of being a rental landlord in Eugene, Lane County, and the state of Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next is Jacob True, followed by Eloise Navarro.
Hello there. Thank you to the Mayor of Eugene City Council. My name is Jacob True. I live in Ward 1. I grew up here. I moved away for a while and then moved back with my new family. My whole family moves here, and I want our city to be a good place to live for me and my growing family as we're progressing along. Just wanted to hit on a couple points as I'm here to support the Fossil Free Eugene Coalition with my organization, the DSA of Eugene. Northwest Natural is asking to raise their rates while they're paying big old bonuses to their executives and running these huge anti-electrification campaigns that, as some of the folks spoke already, kind of illustrated, full of misinformation. It's a shame seeing a big public company trying to push us around here. Doesn't make any sense to me. Wanted to talk a little bit about my experience with electrifying our house here a little bit ago. When we purchased our house here, it had a gas system. And after doing a little bit of research into it, was able to find that, oh my goodness, we could save a whole bunch of money on our bills with the benefits from EWEB and from just the fact that it takes a whole lot less energy to use a heat pump than it does to burn fracked gas, and release a whole bunch of carbon. I can say we got changed over just here recently, and saving us a pile of money, and I'm not seeing any difference at all. Like, it's fantastic. We had that snow here. It's great. Like, I don't know. I think it's a pretty easy decision to make. I really do recommend getting the language of the ordinance written and ready to be presented, but before the end of May. And yeah, going ahead and going forward with it. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jacob. Next is Eloise Navarro, followed by Tomoko Sekiguchi.
Mayor Venice, City Council, and City Manager Maderi, thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony. My name is Eloise Navarro, and I'm a resident of Ward 2. I'm a co-coordinator for the Climate Justice League's Fossil Fuel campaign at the University of Oregon, and I'm also the Environmental Climate Justice Coordinator at the Eugene Springfield NAACP. I'd like to start by saying thank you for acknowledging the Indigenous land that we are on, but also inform you that land acknowledgements are only productive if they are paired with action. To truly honor the Indigenous peoples in our community, you can decide to stop building fracked gas infrastructure on stolen land. I'm here today to thank you for your votes to forward motions to transition our community to clean electricity and promote needed climate policy in Eugene. And I'm also requesting that council members vote to direct staff to draft ordinance language mandating all electric new construction in residential, commercial, and industrial buildings by 2023. This draft ordinance language should be requested to come back to council at a work session no later than May 31st, 2022. To not react urgently to these requests is to deny the severity of the climate crisis. When you deny the severity of the climate crisis, you are denying a livable future for my generation. Many of my friends, peers, and colleagues have already chosen to not have children due to the political inaction regarding our current climate patterns. You're also denying a livable future for BIPOC, low-income, and unhoused community members. We all deserve to breathe and to exist without our health and safety being compromised. Finally, you are denying yourselves the opportunity to be on the leading end of climate justice efforts that will take place across the country. Investing in our Eugene community will make an invaluable difference in our collective health, well-being, and future. I urge you to place people over profit. No more climate-related illnesses, injustices, or deaths. I am excited for this opportunity to work towards climate justice and I'm hopeful that you will make the right and needed decision. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Eloise. Next is Tomoko Sekiguchi, followed by Jim New.
Good evening, Mayor Venice, City Council, and City Manager Maderi. Thank you for providing this opportunity for testimony. My name is Tomoko Sekiguchi, and I'm a resident in Eugene in Ward 3. I retired from the University of Oregon, where I worked in the Energy Studies in Buildings Lab in the Department of Architecture. I spent most of my career writing software to evaluate energy loss and gain in buildings. I even made a website widget that plotted daily energy usage from eWeb, Northwest Natural Gas, and the steam plant at the university that the Facility Services Department could use to making decisions. It may sound trivial now, but this was in the old days when we didn't have a massive amount of information so easily available at our fingertips. You all are considering disallowing new methane gas permits starting next year in 2023. That means installing only electricity in all new building construction. I want to thank you for this critically important move. This is the kind of right now thinking necessary to address climate change that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report is talking about. The IPCC report says the technologies and policies necessary to adequately address climate change exist, and the only real obstacles are politics and fossil fuel interests. So if you pass this ordinance, you will be tackling the IPCC report's biggest obstacle. And the time frame of now is addressed by the start date of 2023. This is a glimmer of hope that we can and will make changes necessary to keep our planet from overheating and becoming unlivable. The City of Eugene will be a leader in making significant changes for the environment that other cities will follow. I applaud you on the council, who are paving the way to make this happen. This is extremely serious and important work, but time is of the essence, and that is the crucial aspect. It has to happen now. So thank you. Let's do it.
Thank you, Tomoko. Your time has concluded. Next is Jim New, followed by Catherine Dunn.
Mayor, Council, and City Manager, welcome back from your spring break to the second day of winter. My name is Jim New, Ward 7, 350 Eugene volunteer. I thank you for the opportunity to speak and your vote to forward 2 motions to transition Eugene to clean electricity. With no surprises, after years of speaking before you, we have reached the collective tipping point. The latest IPCC Working Group 3 recommends limiting global carbon emissions by reducing fossil fuel use, widespread electrification, improved energy efficiency, and use of alternative green fuel sources. The City Climate Action Plan passed by you 3 years ago recommends reduction in fossil fuel use in transportation and building energy and electrification of both sectors, including energy conservation. eWeb has 90% renewable electricity and has stated they can provide resource adequacy to meet our future electric needs. In waiting to take so long to take action in reducing fossil fuel emissions, we have denied ourselves any chance of making the energy transition gradual or smooth. You are now tasked with the making of a difficult decision at a watershed moment. I request that you consider directing staff to draft an ordinance requiring all new residential, commercial, and industrial construction be 100% electrical by 2023, which could include an infeasibility waiver for limited exemptions similar to Sacramento, California's electrification ordinance for such as Oakshire Brewery, because we would still want to have a pint. And direct staff to draft an ordinance requiring all buildings in Eugene be 100% electric by 2045. The discussions and scientific data have all been presented, and it is now up to your political will to make the prudent decision. I thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Jim. Next is Catherine Dunn, followed by Deborah Higby Sudica.
Good evening. I'm Catherine Dunn, Ward 5. I'm speaking on renter protections, also known as landlord regulations. The data being relied on to pass these regulations is either non-existent, unreliable, or biased. Unverified tenant complaints and hearsay must not be used to create stringent laws that will affect all tenants, all landlords in our entire community. It started with the Housing Policy Board, which is naturally biased toward low-income tenants. The makeup of both the HPB and the Renter Protection Committee was intentionally stacked against landlords. Just read the minutes, it's right in there. And there was not one independent landlord on those committees. The City Council is considering regulations against landlords, and we deserve to have a dialogue with the City Council. It's a mistake to not include independent landlords in this decision-making process. A back and forth dialogue is needed so you can understand the challenges that landlords already face and what those challenges would look like if these regulations pass. 2.5 minutes during a council meeting is just not enough time. We rely on our elected officials to use valid data and unbiased consultants and professionals to make decisions for our community, especially decisions that would affect something as important as our housing supply. The city spent 4 months holding in-person listening sessions for tenants to share their issues. Now we ask that the council schedule at least 2 in-person listening and dialogue sessions with landlords before making any decisions. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how helpful and informative these sessions would be. So please put that on your schedule. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine. Next is Deborah Higby Sudica, followed by Peter Rep. Deborah, please unmute.
Yes, thank you. Hi, my name is Deborah Higby Sudica from Corvallis, and I represent the Oregon Chapter Sierra Club. And thank you, Mayor Vinis and City Council, for the opportunity to give input on this very important issue. So I'm here to testify for the club, but I want to explain how this issue affects me personally. I'm a real estate owner and manager of some houses in Eugene. I've moved them all away from gas to electric except for one, and have plans to move that final one off of gas as soon as I can. And this testimony will help explain why I did this, but I'm going to cut it short because I think you've heard a lot of the reasons why I think you should make this move. But I also think that the Sierra Club supports the City of Eugene in passing a mandate for all electric in new construction. And this will continue the process of transitioning off of fossil fuels, as you've heard. The city might also consider the issue of stranded assets. If the city continues to allow the building out of gas infrastructure, that's a sunk cost, which is a way of essentially committing citizens to gas as a fuel for 30 to 40 years. As a practical matter, it is the best that the city not invest in any more dirty and expensive gas infrastructure when clearly the future of energy will inevitably be clean electricity, especially if we want a livable planet. Thank you very much for hearing all this great testimony and passing this vital policy and helping us transition to a low carbon future. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Next is Peter Rep, followed by Fred Mallory.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Peter Reppy. I live in Ward 3. And thank you, City Council and Mayor, for your hard work on implementing the Climate Recovery Ordinance. Very difficult. I work in engineering for a company that provides high efficiency HVAC equipment up and down the West Coast. And I'm seeing every single day how projects in British Columbia, California, and Washington State are electrifying their cities. And as you probably all are aware now, heat pumps are the workhorse in this effort. And I just wanted to raise your attention to a piece of common wisdom that you might encounter from HVAC contractors and other contractors, which is that heat pumps don't work when it gets cold outside. That is 1980s technology. current heat pumps that are on the market for space conditioning and domestic hot water generation. Current technologies are so efficient, they work down to -25 Fahrenheit. So there's no reason from that standpoint to say heat pumps don't work. And increasingly, that technology is available as air to water heat pumps so that we don't have these large amounts of refrigerant lines in buildings which have their own climate problems. So that is the main point I was trying to make. Heat pumps are working great and they're here to stay. Thank you very much for your attention. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Peter. Next is Fred Mallory, followed by Clay Skirdahl.
Hello. Okay, I finally got it turned on. Yeah, Fred Mallory here, Ward 1, Emily Semple, retired eWeb energy management specialist, born and raised in Eugene, over 70 years. I'm a member of the Emerald Valley Electric Vehicle Association and a board member, a board chair, co-chair of Southwest Hills Neighborhood Association. So the two of those have empowered me to talk a little bit about, well, one about trees. When you're in the HB 2001, we're specifically talking about trees, keeping the old trees, the healthy trees. Let's keep those, very important. And then in the energy management, or the actually electrical vehicle situation, 40% of the carbon produced here in Lane County, over 40%, is from our transportation. So when it comes to promoting electrical vehicles, we are concerned about charging, very concerned about charging. Where will these vehicles get charged? A lot of people, there's a gap in the MUDs, the multi-unit developments, for places to those people to come home, pull into their parking spot and plug in. So I think in that HB 2001, I really want to urge the city to consider the electrical vehicle charging. The electrical vehicle is what's going to happen. It's going to take place of what we call ICE, or internal combustion engine cars, eventually. And so we have to be prepared for that demand. And so I really want you to contemplate that, consider it. Thank you very much for letting me speak about this from Sheena and from EVEVA. Yeah, thank you for working on this project. It's very important.
Thank you, Fred. Next is Clay Skirdahl, followed by Glenn Gillis.
Mayor and councilors, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight on the natural gas issue.
I nailed it. Damn soon.
Well, hopefully I nail it too. What I wanted to mention tonight was that I am not in favor of the proposal to eliminate natural gas in new facilities and new building. I live in Ward 8. I've had the opportunity living up here to have our power knocked out several occasions over the last number of years. And because of my gas fireplaces, even though the fan didn't work, and my gas stove, we were able to keep the house warm and continue to cook inside our house with those uses. But that's not really the big issue here. I don't think we're asking the right question when it comes to eliminating a source of energy for our community. The big issue really is the infrastructure in place to be able to transmit energy over our current power lines with the load structure based upon, as we move forward, I believe we'll have more electric cars and there'll be more people moving to electric. I support that. But we need to start looking at our transmission lines and doing some forecasting to see what availability we will have as we start to increase our usage of electricity. As you know, today, energy, The power plants, about 61% of power plants are using fossil fuels today. I see natural gas as a transition fuel. We're really transitioning to what I believe will become more of a focus on nuclear power to provide that energy. Each side of this equation is passionate about their position, and they will find data to fit into their narrative. So I'm reminded of Mark Twain. It says, figures don't lie, but liars figure. You need to do the research yourself and look into it. I was born and raised in North Dakota in the oil fields, and I can tell you all the information you're getting on fracking and on CO2 emissions is not true. And I'd love to lead a task force or a group up to the oil fields and show you what is being done with carbon capture.
Thank you, Clay. Next is Glenn Gillis, followed by Brittany Quick Warner. Glenn, please unmute.
Good evening, Mayor Venice, City Council, City Manager Maderi. Thank you for providing this opportunity for testimony. My name is Glenn Gillis, and I'm a resident of Eugene, Ward 1. I worked for almost 17 years as Information Technology Manager for the nonprofit Environmental Law Alliance Worldwide, the secretariat of which is located in Eugene, and which facilitates an international collaborative network of public interest environmental and human rights lawyers and scientists. I also attended the University of Oregon School of Architecture and Allied Arts for 3.5 years, where I focused on historic preservation and energy efficient building design. I've been a homeowner in Eugene for 25 years, the first 20 in an older home with natural gas heating, and the last 5 in a condominium in which my wife and I have considered converting our electric kitchen range to natural gas. Northwest Natural has successfully steered our community's conversation about natural gas away from the facts that 2/3 of the natural gas supply in the U.S. is obtained by hydraulic fracking, methane leaks in all stages of natural gas drilling, transportation, and use, and that over a 20-year period, methane traps 80 times as much atmospheric heat as carbon dioxide. It's time for Eugene to lead the way in the inevitable Oregon, U.S., and global transition to renewable energy. As we brace ourselves for more climate-driven weather disasters, it is critical our city does everything in its power to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuel use and protect our most vulnerable communities from the impacts of climate change. I'm excited and proud to know that my city council has expressed strong support for a work session to explore concrete policies to transition Eugene away from climate damaging fossil fuels. I'm requesting that council members vote to direct staff to immediately draft ordinance language mandating all electric new construction in residential, commercial, and industrial buildings by 2023, including an infeasibility waiver similar to that adopted to Sacramento and other California cities for limited exemptions. This draft ordinance language should be requested to come back to council at a work session no later than May 31st, 2022. Thank you for your time and consideration of this request.
Thank you, Glenn. Next is Brittany Quick Warner, followed by phone ending in 234.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Thanks for allowing us to testify here tonight. I'm gonna ditch my testimony a little bit for the sake of time, but also just process. I think that, I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of a lot of businesses who are really concerned about our local climate and who are equally concerned about a policy that could have a pretty significant impact on our local economy, really only getting the chance for public input at this point in front of you at this City Council forums that we've seen and in some email testimony. I have a real concern about the local climate, but my concern is that the way that we are going about approaching solving this global crisis at a local level, I think is really missing an opportunity for us to actually create a much larger impact than maybe banning new building natural gas might even have. The issue that I have with this process is that we are not sitting down at a table and bringing people into a conversation and having a discussion with businesses, with neighbors, with individuals in our community to understand what issues this kind of policy will actually create for our local economy, for our businesses, and for our home builders and renters. And we have seen a process model that you guys did with the Middle Housing Code that allows for a much more elaborate discussion. And that is what we're advocating for here today. We have not taken a position as a chamber on this because we haven't seen the data or had the discussion that we feel is necessary to even have before we take a position. And that's why we feel like it's way too soon for the council to move forward with just an ordinance that they really allow a public hearing for as the means for discussion. We've seen tonight, there are so many people who logged onto this meeting, asked to speak within seconds of being added to the meeting, and are not going to be able to testify tonight because we've seen a lot of folks who have shown up week after week to provide their testimony. So my question for you is, are you asking all the right questions? We want to know how much reductions we'll actually see from this policy. What ways will this impact local businesses? Do we even have the technology for all of our local manufacturing procedures to do with this type of policy? So we want you to ask more questions. We want to be at the table to have that discussion, and we're here to help make this a possibility for our community. Thanks.
Thank you, Brittany. And our last speaker is going to be phone ending in 234. Phone ending in 234, please unmute. Phone ending in 234, please unmute. So it looks, oh, there he goes.
Hi, this is Catherine Williams. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Venice, City Councilor, City Manager Maderi. My name is Catherine Williams, and I'm the Vice President of Public Affairs and Sustainability at Northwest Natural. I'm here tonight to reiterate that we share the city's desire for decarbonization. In fact, we've shown this commitment in several tangible ways, including supporting aggressive energy efficiency programs and measures, providing verifiable carbon offsets through our Smart Energy program, which has the highest enrollment in Eugene among all our customers territory-wide, and partnering with our local leaders on several renewable energy projects. In addition to this work, we have met every request the City of Eugene has made of us in support of its climate action planning efforts. Over the last several years, we've provided the city with 5 different emission reduction proposals to address the city's climate goals. So we are left to wonder, is the real goal reducing emissions, or is it forcing electrification of new homes and businesses, no matter what? We believe there is a better path forward to a renewable future. This one includes a diversified energy system with renewable electrons over wires and renewable molecules underground to create the best opportunity for meeting our collective climate goals in the fastest, most resilient way possible. And Eugene residents agree. Recent polling shows that the vast majority of Eugene voters support energy choice and decarbonizing the pipeline, not gas bans. We will continue to lead the way in emissions reduction and are open to collaboration. Unfortunately, we've continued to see misinformation circulated, particularly about indoor air quality, and even put on the record this evening. So we'll be following up with the council and staff to correct that record. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And Mayor, that concludes our public forum for this evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Anaya, for navigating through that. And we got through a lot of testimony tonight. So thank you, all of you who signed up, managed to navigate the new system. I know it was a little bit glitchy in the beginning, and so I appreciate your bearing with us as we sort ourselves out in our new system, and appreciate all the testimony. I know that Councilor Syret is ready to make comments, and so I will turn it, and Councilor, followed by Councilor Semple. Okay, take it away.
Thank you. Thanks everyone who spoke to us tonight. I particularly want to thank those who provided counterpoints to some of the misinformation about our electrification work session and what we're going to be considering. I will say it's disappointing, but not surprising that Northwest Natural is taking out ads and sending flyers to customers that misrepresent their efforts and ability to achieve decarbonization of their products, as well as the proposals that we will be considering regarding electrification, and that they have engaged others to take out ads that are full of half-truths and mischaracterizations. We are not proposing to ban natural gas for current industry, as some of you pointed out, commercial buildings or housing. Existing breweries, coffee roasters, and others will not be impacted, even if they want to expand at their current location. We are having our very first work session on this topic. So to state that we have skipped the step of examining whether this is good policy is false. This is the purpose of our work session, to explore ways that this policy might be implemented, what the benefits of it might be, and if it would be good policy to advance our carbon reduction goals. Obviously, people are engaged in this discussion, as evidenced by the many people, both pro and con, who have participated in our public forum and sent us emails. And assuming that we are moving forward on the ordinance, there will be a public hearing and additional opportunity for public input. We delayed action on this matter in order to provide Northwest Natural with the opportunity to step up and make a real commitment to decarbonization. They used that time instead to drag out negotiations and avoid making real commitments to changing their products efficiently enough to actually make them a viable lower carbon alternative. They are not an honest actor in this arena, and their word should not be trusted. Their ad suggested that we should deal with other issues such as homelessness, housing, mental health, and public safety instead of banning natural gas. They failed to mention the glaring issue of climate change that impacts most of those other challenging issues. This is a big decision, but one that other communities have faced and forged a path forward to take action to reduce their carbon emissions. I look forward to this council's discussion on this important topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Semple.
Thank you. I just want to give a thank you to everyone who spoke, but an even bigger thank you to the 30 hands that were still raised. That really speaks to us that there's a lot of people who have things to tell us. And I know it's very frustrating to wait for an hour and a half and then not get to speak. So even though I didn't get to hear you, I want you all to know that I appreciate you trying to talk to me. And please keep trying, send us emails. And we really do appreciate that we have so many people who care. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Groves.
Thank you, Mayor. And Councillor Semple said a lot what I was, covered a lot of what I wanted to say. I too want to thank everyone who signed up, whether you got to speak or not. Everyone's voice matters, and it's important that we hear your thoughts and your concerns. And I would encourage you, as Councillor Semple did, to contact us by email. We are receiving a lot of input on this, on the natural gas issue, on the middle housing issue, on the rental protection issues. We have, and the unhoused issues. We have a lot of big issues before us right now, impactful issues that will affect our community for years to come. And we do value your opinions. So please continue to reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keating.
Thank you, Mayor. To quote Fred Mallory of Ward 1, Councillor Syrett nailed it. Push pulls and rate hikes and misinformation do not collaboration make. They are indeed push pulls, rate hikes, and misinformation. So several folks tonight mentioned the word hope. They have hope in council, and council president's comments tonight give me hope as well. I appreciate the unbridled enthusiasm from Sheena board member Fred Mallory and those who provided, as Pam Waddell mentioned, comments regarding climate consciousness. There was a great many Eugene resident, a great many number of Eugene residents tonight who brought their climate consciousness to the conversation, and I thank you. I echo the sentiments of my colleagues who mentioned that there were indeed more than 30 folks who didn't get a chance to have their voice heard tonight. If you're a Ward 2 resident, I'm at 541-515-3819. That's my cell. Feel free to text or call. I would say anytime, but really not in the middle of the night, please. So I look forward to having those conversations, not only one-on-one in group settings and at our upcoming work session about decarbonization. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say to those who, by what I've heard, is 75 to 80% of the people in Eugene who don't want us to ban the use of natural gas in the future, as several councilors seem to be wanting to put us on the course and on the path to doing, that not all councilors agree with their colleagues. If anyone has acted in bad faith with regard to the conversations between Northwest Natural Gas and the city of Eugene, it has been the city of Eugene. And I want to say that real clearly. We have asked for multiple things and changed the rules of the game along the process of trying to negotiate for our franchise agreement. I think that Brittany Quick Warner did a good job of mentioning the point that it doesn't do us any good to make the people we may or may not agree with evil. And it's really disappointing to me that we're speaking that way about people in our community. We need to be a part of working together with folks for the sake of the people we represent. The vast majority of whom do not want us curtailing and ending the use of natural gas. And the wise course, in my opinion, is the one put forward by the general manager of eWeb, which is a combined effort based on modeling that they've already worked out, and I hope will be a part of our future discussion. But I just want to make sure that the vast majority of people who are not in favor of us taking that road hear at least one voice on the council saying that I don't agree with my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. I know Councillor Saret has another comment. Anybody else who hasn't spoken? All right, Councillor Saret.
Yeah, I just have to address your comments, Councillor Clark. I did not use the word evil. I did not imply that I believed anyone was evil. I said Northwest Natural was not an honest actor. So I do not appreciate you characterizing my comments as implying that anyone is behaving in an evil manner, because that is clearly not what I said. I will also say that Councillor Zelenka, Councillor Semple, and I worked on a steering committee that for months and months worked in good faith with staff to try to come to an agreement with Northwest Natural. And in spite of what you may believe, they are the ones who continue to move the goalpost, not the city of Eugene.
Second.
Thank you. And I will just wrap this up by saying this is the first of many challenging conversations about how we implement this critical part of our climate action plan, which is approved council policy. This is one possible strategy. This week will be the first really solid conversation where we actually start to look at what it would take, what the code currently allows, and consider those implications. So it's an important conversation. It's really important that we not jump to conclusions about what the intent, about where we're going to exactly land on this. We need to put that information together. We need to have that public conversation. So I say to all of you who are assuming we're doing one thing, let us do the work together, participate in the conversation. Councilors will participate in the conversation. We will gather the information. But our goal is to respond to the impacts of climate change and to do so responsibly. And that's hard work. If it were easy, we wouldn't be having these hard conversations. So with that, I believe we are tired. It's been a long meeting and an informative meeting. Thank you all for your endurance and your patience and your contributions, and we are adjourned.